What condition of the human soul forces corresponds in the best sense of the word to an existence worthy of man? It may be urged that every individual bears within himself, at least in adaptation and destination, a purely ideal man. The great problem of his existence is to bring all the incessant changes of his outer life into conformity with the unchanging unity of this ideal. It is Schiller's aim to build a bridge from man as he is in immediate reality to the ideal man. There exist in human nature two impulses which hold it back from idealistic perfection when they develop in an unbalanced way, the impulses of the senses and of reason. If the sense impulse has the upper hand, man is the servant of his instincts and passions. His acts become the result of an inner necessity. If the reason impulse predominates, man strives to suppress the instincts and passions and to give himself up to an abstract necessity that is not sustained by inner warmth. In both cases, man is subject to coercion. In the first, his sense nature subdues the spiritual. In the second, his spiritual nature subdues that of the senses. Neither the one nor the other gives man full and complete freedom. Complete freedom can only be realized in harmonization of the two impulses. The material sense nature must not be subdued, but ennobled. The instincts and passions must be permeated with spirituality in such a way that they themselves come to be the fulfillment of the spiritual element that has entered into them. And reason must lay hold of the soul nature in man in such a way that it imparts its power to what is merely instinctive and passional, causing man to fulfill its counsel as a matter of course from out of his instinct and with the power of passion. When we have desire for someone who is worthy of our disdain, we have painful experience of the constraint of nature. When we are antagonistic to another who merits our respect, we have painful experience of constraint of the intellect. As soon, however, as he interests our affection and wins our respect, the coercion of feeling and the coercion of reason both despair, and we begin to love him. A man whose material nature manifests the spiritual qualities of reason, and whose reason manifests the basic power of passion, is a free personality. Schiller would like to found a harmonious social life in human society upon the basis of free personalities. Goethe found deep satisfaction in such ideas. He writes to Schiller on the subject of the aesthetic letters as follows: I read the manuscript sent to me with the very greatest pleasure. I imbibed it at one draught. How could it be otherwise, since I found such a coherent and noble exposition of what I have long recognized to be true, partly experiencing it, partly longing to experience it in life. The conversations revolved around two central points of thought. One of them governs those conceptions of man which make him believe in the existence of some connection between the events of his life, a connection which is impermeable to the laws of material actuality. Goethe did not write these narratives as a result of a tendency towards superstition, but from a much deeper motive. He was faced by the question, does there not exist for the human soul a possibility of emancipating itself from conceptions emanating from mere sense perception, and of apprehending a supersensible world in a purely spiritual mode of conception? Goethe was interested in the peculiar direction of the soul's activity when giving way to this fondness for the sweets of superstition rather than for the actual content of the tales and stories to which these tendencies give birth in unsophisticated minds. From the second central point of thought flow conceptions concerned with man's moral life, the stimulus for which is derived not from material existence, but from impulses which raise man above the impacts of material sense existence. In this sphere, a supersensible world of forces enters into the soul life of man. Rays which must ultimately end in the supersensible proceed from both these central points of thought, and they give rise to the questions about the inner being of man, the connection of the human soul with the sense world on the one side and with the supersensible on the other. Schiller approached this question in a philosophical attitude. The abstract philosophical path was not Goethe's. He had to give a picture form to what he wrote. In Goethe's imagination, the different human soul powers assumed the form of figures in the fairy tale, and the whole soul life and soul striving of man was personified in the experiences and the lives of these figures. And in the fairy tale, Goethe moves with his figures in the realm of supersensible perceptions and not of abstract concepts. It is absolutely necessary, however, to look for the particular thought impulses which stimulated the imagination of the poet to create such figures. Goethe's consciousness did not, of course, lay hold of these thought impulses in abstract form. He expressed himself in imaginative figures because to his genius any abstract form of thought would have been too lacking in content. The thought impulse holding sway in the substrata of Goethe's soul had as its outcome a imaginative figure. Thought, as the intermediate stage, lives only subconsciously in his soul and gives the imagination its direction. The student of Goethe's fairy tale needs the thought content, for this alone can enable his soul to follow the course of Goethe's creative fantasy in recreative imagination. The process of growing into the content of this thought involves nothing more nor less than the adaptation of organs, enabling us to live in the atmosphere that Goethe breathed spiritually when he created the fairy tale. This means that we focus our gaze upon the same soul world as Goethe. As a result of Goethe's control of this soul world, living spiritual forms, not philosophical ideas, burst forth before him. What lives in these spiritual forms lives also in the human soul. The striving towards the condition truly worthy of man, to which Schiller refers and which Goethe longs to experience, is personified in the young man in the fairy tale. His marriage with the lily, who embodies the realization of the world of freedom, is a union with those forces which slumber in the human soul and, when awakened, lead to the true inner experience of the free personality.